What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Music NFT Podcast. Rocket Aaron back again today with a very special guest. We have Nigel Eccles, who's the co-founder of Vault Music. Nigel, how are we?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries. Thank you for coming on. We've spoken about Vault before, and so it's great to have you on. But I guess first, for the listeners who don't know you, maybe just a quick background on who you are,
Sure.
what you've done, and how you got into Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a tech entrepreneur I've been in tech for about 20 something years, mostly in the sports betting space. So I started FanDuel, which is fantasy sports betting company, in 2009. I left there about 6 years ago now to work more in sort of social space. And then 3 years ago, got into Web3. So started doing a lot of work. We're originally in crypto social, and then latterly, sort of towards the end of 21, started to focus on music, and that was basically the start of Vault.
And why music? What kind of took your interest in music?
Yeah, so it really was to fix a problem. We had been working with a couple of music artists who were interested in NFTs and were considering doing NFT drops, but they didn't really think the format, sort of standard music NFT standard, really was designed for music. They felt it was designed for graphic art. They also, some of them either were signed or aspire to be signed, and so they were concerned about putting music in a format that was sort of free to air and could never be taken down. And so we sort of thought, well, look, this is music NFTs are really interesting because they confer ownerships, they confer scarcity, but the format we felt could be improved upon, and that really was the start of the journey that ended up in the Vault music format.
It's come. I feel like Vault's come such a long way in the last year or so, even with just like the GUI interface. Just like I remember interacting initially when you guys launched, and I was like, okay, this is a great idea. Little way to come yet, but it was good, and it's just seeing you guys iterate constantly has been a joy.
Yeah, it's one of the things I failed to understand when we started was just how hard it is to build on blockchain. And one of the reasons, like a lot of the Web3 products are I'd say sort of fairly primitive, but part of the reason is it's just really hard to build something, particularly that's consumer ready on blockchain. And when we started sort of mid 2021, product really wasn't ready until sort of start of this year. So it was a good year and a half to get it. And we wanted to get it to a point where non-crypto native people could, just get on board, could have the full experience without touching crypto. And that took a good year and a half of a pretty big team. It's not a trivial exercise.
Because it's not, because I guess a big drawback, I would say, for Web3 is, the common man jumping on and figuring it all out. And so to build a product that someone can jump on and it's all seamless and everything in the back end is doing what it needs to do, I can imagine would be quite complicated.
Right. Yeah. And the interesting one, obviously, sometimes you hear this philosophy within Web3 that, people need to learn about seed phrases and wallets, and they need to understand self-custody, and only then will they get the full benefit of it. And I kind of sort of think, well, cars were invented in the late 19th century. And at that time, everybody had a mechanic. You had to fix your own car because, they broke down a lot, and there wasn't really any infrastructure to fix them. And you could have said then that once everybody learns to become a mechanic, everybody will have a car. And actually, that's not what happened. Obviously, what happened was cars became more reliable, and you didn't need to know how it worked. And, the few times that it broke down, you could rely on an expert. And I think the same should be true for crypto, which is we can absolutely confer the benefit of ownership to users without them learning about seed phrases and how blockchains work. I think that is on us as product designers to create a product that someone can get the benefits without asking them to, spend the next 6 months trying to really get their head around tokenomics and seed phrases and wallets and things like that.
Yeah, you kind of,
for sure,
the highway along, I suppose, you're kind of iterating to now where every business is kind of the mechanic along the way, allowing everyone to kind of interact with them along the highway. So it's kind of allowing everyone that I suppose would want to interact with the blockchain. We're kind of trying to make it all easier for them, which is, helping them out, I suppose.
Yeah, like we definitely, and it's great that people have been investing in infrastructure like wallets and things like that, and some of the things that we've built on, like the Metaplex format. That's all been really necessary, and that's it's necessary if we want to get there. If we want to get 1 billion people using the blockchain, we're going to need to have that infrastructure to be able to build the consumer products that's going to get them on.
And do you think that obviously Vault is built on the Solana blockchain? Do you think Solana is the future for those, jump in, jump out kind of Web3 technologies where, there isn't those gas fees that we saw years ago for ETH and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So one thing I find a little challenging in crypto is the sort of tribalism of it. Like at the end of the day, it's just a technology. It seems crazy to me that like I didn't realize I was picking a religion. I just thought I think it's worse than even like 10x worse than being an Android or iOS user. It's just a technology. Like it's like an Apache web server. Like users shouldn't care, and it sort of marks how primitive we are. This whole thing is that there's this whole like we've had people that refuse to take like free drops because it's built on Solana, like because they only work on ETH, and I'm just like that is so. It is just so short-sighted. Like I do most of my work on Solana, but I do use Ethereum. I'm always interested in other chains to see what they're doing, and if there's a good product on it, I would absolutely use it. What I will say for Solana is it is fast and it is cheap and it's highly composable as well, which is important for us because one of the challenge I think with the L2 infrastructure is, okay, great, somebody's built something really good in Arbitrum, but it doesn't talk to something that's built on Optimism or Base. And so there's a fragmentation. With Solana, it's monolithic, any application. So, I could take it off. I can take a Vault NFT or of Vault, and I can sell it in Magic Eden. It still stays on Solana. So for consumer products, it's really good. It has incredible wallet infrastructure with Phantom. It has incredible NFT standard with Metaplex. So it's been like it's exceeded our expectation. And then the historical issues they've had with sort of liveness of going down has been really a thing of the past. I don't think there's been any serious issues in the last 12 months.
Slowly dissipated.
Solana's been, Solana's been exceptional. I'd say I'm glad we made that decision, but I'm not a maxi in any way. Like it is the appropriate technology for this use case. I think it is going to be for a lot of consumer products. But if another better technology came along, then I think any product designer should say, well, let's look at that as well.
Let's get why we're here. We're here for the Vault, the fantasy record label.
Yeah.
It's something,
yeah.
And I don't know how many episodes of our show you've listened to, but for those that are out there that are big fans of us, know that we are heavy into, I suppose, the prediction side of music and how blockchain could definitely help that and allow, obviously, the fans and the artists to sort of have a way that the fans can interact in a more gamified way. And just looking through Fantasy Record Label now, just how already the artists that are exceeding, and for those that don't know what Fantasy Record Label is, Vault released probably, what was it, 3 months ago now? When you first started with the spreadsheets?
So the record label, well, it went into alpha about 2 months ago.
2 months
maybe
ago.
3 months ago. And then went into beta about 3-4 weeks ago.
Instead of me fumbling through it, do you want to just tell us about Fantasy Record Label, and then I'll go into what I was talking about.
So let me describe the Vault format, and then we'll describe the label. So the Vault format is a music format that allows artists to create deluxe single, an album, sell them directly to their fans. They're limited edition. They are based on on basically Solana NFT. So there's provable ownership. You can then take that NFT and you can take it at your own self-custody if you want to. But unlike, say, a music NFT, it's exclusive. So only the people who own it actually get to listen. So we have artists who've dropped albums with only 50. Only 50 people can ever listen to that album at any moment. Only 50 people would ever own it. It's not like if, with normal NFTs, anyone can listen to it, whether they own it or not. This has real exclusivity. And so we created that. And we've worked with coming up to probably 100 artists who've created these exclusive singles and albums. And we know in time, as those artists gain popularity, those pieces of early work will gain value. And so we were like, that's great, that's cool. But it's kind of slow, right? Buying into this, early artist and waiting for them to become Taylor Swift could take many years. And in crypto, we don't really think in those times. We think in sort of weeks. And so we said, how do we kind of turbocharge that? And so the way I needed to turbocharge that is, well, like if somebody's going to be the next Taylor Swift, they're going to see a ramp in monthly listeners on Spotify, which is kind of one metric that artists advance look at to see popularity. And we said, well, what if we basically said, let the user take 5 of their sort of favorite artists that they bought their vaults, and then make them a roster. These are the 5 artists. And then we would score them every day on their gains or losses in monthly listeners on Spotify. And so at the end of a week, we then basically would have a league table and we would give prizes, and it's $1,000 we give every week plus points, vault points. And that goes to the winner, the person who assembled a roster of artists that gained the most listeners over that week. And so the idea is there's a long-term gain here, which is buy rare music from artists that you love, that they do really well, that'll become more valuable. But that's the long term. The short term play is if they ramp up on the vault leaderboard or on Spotify listeners, then they become even more valuable because there's prizes to be won.
And this, how much of obviously your experience in FanDuel helped you iterate on this, I suppose?
Yeah, a lot. Obviously, with FanDuel, we spent a lot of time designing games and thinking about what was fun and what wasn't fun. Even some simple things, people are like, well, I don't recognize any of these artists. Why don't you have like Drake and Taylor Swift and all these ones? And you're like, well, they're kind of discovered is the first one. There's no credit. But also, if we were to open it up, there's something like 100,000 tracks go onto Spotify every day. There's millions of artists. That's impossible to play that game, to pick the 5 artists you think you're going to do the best. And so it sort of nearly felt better to have a smaller set, there's something like 50 artists or 40 or 50 artists that are eligible, that you could in a week kind of get through all of them and go, yeah, okay, these are the ones I like, these are the ones I'm going for. So that's kind of the idea, is we wanted to create make the problem set smaller, that you could then pick who you think was going to be really successful.
If an artist wanted to get on the Vault fantasy label, what do you guys look for in terms of putting someone on there?
Oh yeah, so we do get people reaching out all the time, and we are adding. I think we'll do 5 drops this week. We're ramping that up. We want to get to sort of hundreds. For new artists, what we really look for is ideally, over 5,000 monthly listeners. If they could be over 25, more is generally better. We'd love to see strong socials. So, and it's surprising how many artists aren't that great at that. So that's where, not just that they have a lot of followers, which is fine, but actually they have real engagement. We've worked with some artists who had actually several million monthly listeners, but they had and they had a lot of followers on Instagram, but whenever they did drops, it was like nothing happened. There wasn't really any traction, and people just didn't engage with that artist. And we've worked with other artists who had sub 100,000 listeners, and they sold out in 24 hours because even though they didn't have a lot of followers, the ones they had were really engaged, loved their music. They really kind of had a direct connection with the audience. That's the artists that we really love working with. You kind of can see them when you look at somebody's Instagram, and when they post something, it's not just getting a lot of likes, but it's getting a lot of comments like, I love your music. When's the next drop coming up? That sort of thing. That's when we see an artist like that, we were like, wow, that absolutely. And it doesn't matter if they've only got 5,000 followers or 50,000 followers. That's a thing that you're most excited to see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool. The more engaged it's something that we talk about all the time, where you can, it doesn't matter necessarily how big a fan base you get. And especially in Web3, sometimes the smaller 100 to 1,000 fans in this area will be the people that will support you the most and support you the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then what was another thing, some artists we work with have done a really good job at building like email lists and direct connection with the fans. Again, that's incredibly valuable.
Have you seen, I suppose, certain genres pop off a little bit harder than others in purchases?
Yes, we have. So I think, one of the things that took off quite early was New York indie rock. And so because we started to get really strong in that, we get a lot more New York indie rock, and it's probably the strongest category. We also then, about over the summer, started to pick up a lot of Nashville artists. And again, that snowballed. Lots of great indie singer-songwriters there. And so we're sort of building up on that side. And we're starting to see some British music come through. I'd love to see a lot more. But, there's whole genres that we've barely touched. Like we don't have much hip hop. We have no country. But these are all genres that I think would work really well in this format. It's just kind of happenstance. We got strong in a couple of categories and we started getting more of those. But we want to try. Like, we believe this is a format that will work from emerging artists all the way up to Taylor Swift, across hip hop, across country, Christian, whatever the genre is. We always say it's like, as long as an artist has got real fans, then the format should work for them.
And I think, rewarding those super fans and stuff, I'm very lucky in the fact that my favorite artists, the Chainsmokers, have jumped on the Web3 bandwagon and they've given a lot of things to the fans, which is really cool. What kind of, I guess, like unique or like cool offerings have you seen like music artists give to their fans?
Yeah. So here's the thing that, after testing lots of things, and I actually find this somewhat gratifying, is that the thing that fans love the most is music. It's kind of, we thought there could be all these other things behind the scenes, Q&A, AMAs, some sort of, and it was actually music. So the best sellers that we've had have been unreleased music or pre-released music or alternative versions. So those are the things that have really sold. Things that have been good have been things like, are actually really good, is like voice memos. So imagine a song you like and the artist said, hey, no one's ever heard this before, but this is the original voice memo I created that created this song. Or the original lyric sheets, handwritten lyric sheets. This was, how this song was composed. Again, if you love a song and you see that, that's great, right? So some stuff about the production or behind the production of the music, behind would be probably number two. And then there's lots of other things they can put in, but number one is unreleased music. Number two is some of the snippets that have gone into creation of some of their, favorite tracks.
Yeah, cool.
It's actually, it's interesting. We actually, when we talk to artists, we definitely counsel them not to lard. Don't lard it up. And because sometimes they think they need to do a lot of other stuff. And I said, look, the good news is your fans kind of think they get that for free. Like, you're on Instagram. They don't need like special photo shoots or special video. They want music and they want the thing that made the music. And that's what they really value.
Sure. Yeah, the music is definitely always what we're here for. If you can get a song, an unreleased song that they've, that no one else is going to listen to, and as you said with the vault, you are essentially owning something that, that a regular person might not even ever had an attachment to,
even know it exists. If Miley Cyrus released Flowers earlier this year, there's an alternative version on her album. it has like 0.1% of the plays of it's actually less than that, of the main track with Flowers. That one should have been in a vault. Like that should have been a special that for her top fans, right? Because it's not going to perform nearly as well as the hit, but it's an amazing song. And she could have so much made it kind of like, okay, this is for my top fans that are really going to appreciate this alternative version.
What has so far? Just go back to Fantasy Record Label. Who has been the overperformer at the moment? Who is everyone battling to hold as part of their record label?
Oh, so right now it's Blue Eyes, who's an indie artist with about 500,000 monthly listeners. I think she's on tour at the moment, so she's on a bit of a heater.
Well, that's some good insight.
Which is one of
the artist on tour at the moment. Yeah, that's a really good insight there. You've heard it here first.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just see. I can just... Post-Sex Nachos, which is a sort of a New York indie band. They're the top pick this week. AK The Savior is another hip-hop artist who's performed really well. I mentioned Blue Eyes, who's touring. So she's actually the top this week in Gainers. And then what's that one on? YSA is an artist we've just signed. Yes, you can actually go and look if you go to the leaderboard, you can see who the top label has picked, and you can see, that's why they're winning, and so you can actually look at their roster. The one kind of inside baseball thing is the trend tends to be your friend, right? So artists that are going up to the right tend to be the ones that'll continue to go to their right, up and to the right. And so even just following, if you just pick last week's winners, probably going to do okay whenever you're putting together your roster.
Who are some of your favorite artists, Nigel, that you'd love to see on Vault and on the Fantasy Record Label?
Well, there's ones on Vault that I love that are small, like The Cave and Sid Simons. There's sort of New York indie rock scene. Who would we love to see? It's more kind of, I'm trying to think. It's more emergent acts. There's like I love like 70s and 80s, British punk. Like I love the Pogues and Stiff Little Fingers. I don't think our format lends itself to them, even though I love them. I think it's more those artists that are 100,000 to 500,000 or 1 million that are emerging, that are wanting to have a more direct relationship with their fans and are building that and are not looking to a label to do that. I think that's who we're most excited about right now.
I think it's definitely like it's kind of in that infancy of like a new breed of musician who has that at the forefront of their mind when they start to come up, as opposed to someone who's been doing it for a while and it's just like a new thing that they can try.
That's right. Now, I look to SoundCloud, where SoundCloud was this format that was used particularly in hip hop for artists to be discovered, right? And it became a whole platform for discovery and was very, very successful for that. But it was a new generation of artists. What we want to see is a new generation of artists who are like, it's not just here about discovery. It's actually about monetization. Actually, could potentially even create a career here using this and other tools out there, which mean I might never be signed. And that might be exactly what I want to do. I actually want to stay independent, but I can actually, I can distribute through DistroKit. I can make money through streaming and Vault and direct sales from my fans. That's a new type of artist that we really want to see on the platform.
Yeah, really trying to ramp up that monetization and get to a place where, you kind of, without, I suppose, overdoing it, like, because in the same instance, you don't want to be seen as one of those artists that it's like, yeah, I'm just here just trying to rake in the cash. But really, in essence, it's like you're trying to help an artist make a living. You're just trying to get them to a place where they can go.
So, the so funny thing is, like, I grew up in the 90s and we had the whole phenomenon of not selling out. I won't sell out. And artists are so far from that today. It's like I would just like to be able to live. I'd like to be able to play a gig and be able to pay the Uber to take me home afterwards. Like that's like where bar is so low, and I think when I think about it, I just want to give artists the tools to do that. Like we get so much pleasure and enjoyment out of music, and we, as a consumer, dramatically underpay for that. I just think of like when I compare to other entertainment things like sports or TV, the amount we pay for music is shockingly low. And but I don't think you should be guilting people into saying, oh, you should pay more or you should like GoFundMe to artists. I think what we need is we need platforms like Vault that allow there to be a transaction where you can, the artist isn't saying to me, give me money because I give you pleasure. The artist is saying, I'm creating something really special, and you'll buy it because, you want to have that really special thing, and you want to listen to this music. You want to, and everybody wins. Like the artist wins because they make money. They also get a cheaper connection to the fan, and the fan gets something truly special. That's what we want to try and create. And so everyone's like, if you think about it today in North America, we pay something like 40% less for recorded music than we did 20 years ago. Right. And when you think about the explosion of consumption of recorded music, you're like, wait, that something's not right here. Like, is the music so much worse that we pay less? Like, no, it's because the format just doesn't monetize it as well as it did 20 years ago.
Do you have anything else, bro?
No, I think that's kind of everything I really wanted to talk about. There's just some interesting stuff. It's just like just writing down the tools to take an Uber. I love that. Brilliant quote.
Yeah.
Nigel, thank you very much for joining us on the episode today. It was a pleasure to chat with you. Where can people find you? Where can they find Vault Music?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vault Music is vault.fan. If you go there, you can kind of see the web product and all of the artists that are on it. It's a downloadable app, so you'll find it in the App Store. It's easier if you go to vault.fan and download it from there. It's on Android and iOS.
That is it, everyone, for another week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you rate and review, subscribe, leave us a message, follow us on the socials. Just engage with us because we love engaging with you guys. And we will catch you on the next episode.